welcome to the show, Vesna. Thank you so much for coming to see me in South Melbourne. And let's get into the burnout topic.
Thank you.
First, tell me a little bit more about you, because you started off as a naturopath. You're also a bit of an athlete, so very, very health conscious.
Yep.
Very, very mindful of I was reading your bio earlier. You went to the extreme of preparing all your meals as a kid and all of that. So how did this whole health wellness journey start for you?
So my mum raised us on naturopathics and homeopathics and good nutrition. So that was part of my upbringing. So when I was about 13, 14, I was like, yep, I want to be a naturopath. And, even in school, everyone's like, yeah, that makes sense, because this is what you are, what you eat and the way I live. So, yeah, I knew from a young age, and I loved nutrition, and I loved keeping my body healthy, and I loved being active and fit. And then obviously went to study herbal medicine, nutrition and homeopathics, everything that comes under the naturopathic umbrella, and then went into practice straight away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was really daunting, but really glad I did, because, it's one of those hurdles that you have to cross, right? Because it can be quite daunting, and loved it. I did clinical practice I had multiple clinics for about 10 years, and then decided I don't want to be in a clinic anymore. I want to do this on a bigger scale, and I want to do it virtually. I want to do things differently. And then I went online, and I went first of all doing consultations via Skype back then.
I remember Skype.
Yep.
Skype was the old Zoom.
Yep. And then from there, I remember I had a coach, and she said, you always end up saying the same thing to people, like the foundations, right, of health. You're looking at adrenal health, thyroid health, gut health, detoxification, all of that. Why don't you record those key foundations and put it into a program? And I was like, yeah, okay, maybe. And she was like, offer the program. And so I did. I was like, this is not going to work. You really need to have a one-on-one with me in order to customize and things like that. But I was really surprised by how well it worked, and the power of a community of women doing it together, supporting each other, and knowing that actually they're not alone in the way that they feel. And it's really, unfortunately common. It is. The power of that community, and by them taking the steps in the program, the results, we have over 4,000 women in that community now.
Wow.
And the results are phenomenal.
That's epic.
I couldn't believe that it could do what it does. So, it works. And so I've expanded. I do more programs. I do high-level coaching programs, and I've been doing that now for about almost 10 years.
Yeah, because you can jump on your website and you've got specific programs for specific things, but and the people can also do one-on-one with you if they choose to as well.
Yeah.
And they're quite. I was on one of the programs yesterday having a look-see, and they're so well designed, because you really do look at every element of an individual. You kind of go from obviously their mental and emotional well-being to then their nutritional well-being to their physical health, and then maintenance and all that. So it's not like a one-stop shop. In fact, I mean, it is a one-stop shop, but it gives you kind of a really clear guidance system to where you are in your wellness journey, which I think is really, really helpful, which is probably why it's been so successful as well.
And I think also too, because we've had so many people go through it, and every time, we just refine, test, refine, and just optimize. And it's so optimized now that, we have the key steps that are really going to move the needle. Yeah. And then we have some optional stuff if people want to do, and we let them know what's what.
Yeah.
And so it's for the busy woman, or it's for the woman who has more time. Regardless, we make it so it's really easy to implement step by step, really slowly.
Yeah.
And they feel better with each step that they take, which is motivating for them to keep going.
And empowering.
And really empowering.
Yeah. Because I feel like women, you know what, we don't talk about it that often. I mean, like we said just before the podcast started, we have these kind of, superficial conversations about how tired we are, or how exhausted we are, or we're not getting enough sleep and all that sort of stuff. But we really don't really get into the nitty-gritty of things until it's, it's kind of a little bit I don't want to use the word too late, because it's never too late, but until we're kind of in the grips of, either emotional, not being emotionally exhausted, being emotionally exhausted, or, or physically unwell, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, well, that's why I think the power of the community, because women are having these conversations in there, and they're like, I would never contribute, women have said, I would never speak in a community like this, but everyone was saying similar things or feeling similar things to me. So I felt like it was such the right place that I could open up and feel like I'm not alone on this.
Yeah. And I think that's key, isn't it? I think
really key.
When women empathize and sympathize with each other and just knowing that you're not the only one, because I feel like everyone thinks it's just them.
And you go to the doctor, you get your blood test done, everything comes back as fine.
Yeah.
So you're like, what's wrong with me? Like, I'm like, what? I know I'm not, it's not fine. Like, I don't feel fine. This is something more to it. And, you know, unfortunately with the testing, there's not sufficient testing and the ranges, the pathology ranges don't show suboptimal health.
Yeah, yeah.
And so women can stay stuck like that, particularly women for up to 5 years without being given the proper diagnosis or treatment. So 5 years of feeling tired, emotionally exhausted, anxious, stressed, poor sleep, weight gain, depression, without getting a proper diagnosis.
Wow, wow. Would you say there is a specific age group of women that are that come to you with these kind of physical symptoms? Like, when I say age group, is there an age where you see more of these women as opposed to, other
definitely
ages?
Like late 30s, like from 35, 45, 50. But I mean, I went through burnout when I was like 25, 26.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's young.
Yeah, really young. And so you've got millennial burnout,
That's common too right now.
It's really common. So it really, age isn't a barrier for burnout.
No.
But definitely women, around my age, right? So that's who I tend to speak more to. And then there's hormonal changes for women as they get older.
What's up with those freaking hormones?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I'm at that age now. I'm just like, what is this? Puberty in reverse? Like,
they call it second puberty.
What the hell? I thought,
Yeah.
But tell me about your burnout journey, because you're quite open about it in your bio on your website, vesnahrsto.com. So you started your business at the age of 20, 21, super successful, thriving, and then bang, you hit burnout. Tell me about that journey.
Very busy, very overscheduled. Couldn't say no to clients. Everyone, is very busy.
It's common, when you open up your first business.
Because you put everything into it, had to work. There was no plan B. This was it, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I also had a lot of pressure on myself to make it successful, right? Because I remember when we first opened the doors, I was like, I'm working so hard. And my partner was like, what are you working on? You've got no clients yet. Like, and I'm like, no, I've got to keep working. Like, I was just doing plans, whatever, keeping myself busy because I felt like that would then eventually lead to success.
Yeah.
There was not even being busy, but I had to be working. I had to be doing in order to make it successful because I had everything riding on it. And then I honestly didn't even notice initially that I was burning out because I was used to feeling tired.
Would you say being tired was one of the first kind of physical symptoms you felt?
I got to the point where I was really tired then. Okay. So it was initially tired and feeling more stressed. So really kind of reacting to things which I probably wouldn't normally react to. But definitely the fatigue. The fatigue got so bad that I'd have to have a nap during the day on a massage table. That's
why I've got a bed in my office. No, I'm joking.
And I used to live on coffee and chocolate through the day to keep going. And I just couldn't physically I was so tired. And stressed, brain fog, I gained about 10 kilos. No libido, low libido.
Yeah.
And then I went to a couple of doctors. I was like, everything's fine. Then I went to another naturopath, a herbalist, a Chinese medicine doctor. I don't know, you name it. I went to everything.
And you're a naturopath yourself. So you kind of, I guess, innately know, hang on, there's something not right. But because you're so engrossed in making your business work.
But I knew I was like, I'm totally heading into burnout. And I thought, I'm going to nip this in the bud. Right?
Yeah.
I've got 2 dispensaries. I've got supplements, herbs. I know what to eat. I threw everything at it. And I just pushed myself further into burnout.
Really?
Yeah, because I was just taking a lot of herbs to help give me energy, right? Like good herbs like ginseng herbs, right? Ginseng for your adrenal support, for your stress response system. But I was, living off them in order to give me some energy to keep going. And my body was exhausted.
Your body's going, nah.
And then I remember going to a specialist and she did my hormone profile. She did my stress hormones. She just looked at me and she goes, what are you so stressed about? She goes, your hormones are like that of a postmenopausal woman.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't know. And I swear if she had asked me one more time, I think I would have just burst into tears.
Wow.
It was like I wasn't even in touch with it. It was just go, 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 go. But when she had asked, I thought, oh, it kind of got me to ask, like in my mind.
Yeah,
I thought, ask me one more time, I'm going to cry. Because it was obviously just sitting there.
Yeah,
below the surface.
Yeah.
And then it was, for me, so obviously from there, it was the turning point for me was when the stress in my life reduced, I felt a lot better, right? But it's not to say that you have to leave your stress. A lot of my stress, which is a lot of most people's stress, is that we never switch off.
That's true. It's hard when you're running your own business too, I think, as well. I think when you're focusing so much on making your business work, regardless of what profession you're in, I think it is really hard to go home and just switch off because you're always thinking about tomorrow and the next day and all the other things that come with running your own business.
Yeah.
You know.
And I wasn't happy in my relationship at the time. And then when the relationship ended, I really just recovered so fast. It was incredible.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I tell that story and I was like, I'm not telling you to get divorced or leave your partner.
Way.
Yeah. But what was interesting to me, so then my journey was like, okay, you need to cut the stress out of your life. Right. That's what you need to do. Because then your body is such a well-maintained, machine, right? It really is so intelligent. And so once the barriers to healing are removed, then the body does what it needs to do, right? Does it all the time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so I thought, okay, so stress, get rid of stress. And so I'd work with my clients to reduce their stress and stuff. And it was just hard. I wasn't seeing the results.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I got stressed again, I was like, okay, 3-month holiday, I'm going to go to Argentina, And it wasn't the answer because I was still feeling anxious and overwhelmed and things like that, right?
Did it give you a tiny bit of relief? Like when you went away, did you go, oh, you know what, this
just
is nice.
Just
shifted.
Just wherever you go, you take yourself with you. Unfortunately, yeah.
Really?
I mean, there are some situations which, it's best to be out of them, if they're really, but generally if you try to hop, then you end up, for me, business was stressful back then. I found it really hard and stressful. I don't find it like that anymore.
Yeah.
Right. But for me, the biggest thing that I found in my work, yes, you need to support the physical body. Yes, you need to repair imbalances and deficiencies, but you really need to work on the mental stress. We have too much negative thinking. We dwell on things too much. We carry a lot of stuff around in our head all day long. And all it does is trip up the fight or flight response. We get a surge of stress hormones being released, which has a downstream effect on every area of our body. And if we live in that chronic state,
which a lot of us do.
Yeah, we get sick, we get depressed, we get anxious, we gain weight.
And you know what? It's sad. A lot of us actually do, but don't even realize that we do.
Yeah.
We
like years ago.
Yeah. You don't realize that you do until, all of a sudden it's too hard to get out of bed. Doing those little tasks are becoming really difficult to do, And
you don't have the energy to exercise. You don't have the energy to cook a good meal. You don't want to play with your kids anymore. You're just looking at the clock, wait till it's when we're done at the park or at their sports,
I want to go home. That's enough. That's enough.
Just, you just could lay down and have a nap at any time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me. Sometimes. Have you found that post-COVID there's been a spike in women? We're specifically talking about women, but that doesn't need to be women. It could be anyone for that matter that's just going through, and at any age, like you said earlier, burnout and stress doesn't discriminate, but it is a lot more common in women. And I was reading a study earlier about 5,000 women were interviewed over 10 different countries. It was a study done by Deloitte, and it's published in the Forbes in April 2022, and they have found that an increase in burnout in women is a lot higher, and that's due to a lot of different factors, especially after COVID. It's, obviously work, family life, intersectional relationships, all that sort of stuff that is affecting women and are going through burnout more and more. Have you found in your work with your clients that burnout clients have increased post-COVID?
Yeah, definitely. So as soon as we went into lockdown, I would say that, we were so busy.
I could bet you were.
Yeah, we were really busy, which was a surprise. I mean, not in hindsight, no, of course it's not a surprise, but burnout, I think, or even anxiety and depression, but severe anxiety and depression reached, I think in the stage 4 lockdown here, so what was that, 2022?
Yeah.
34% of people
Yeah.
had severe anxiety and depression, not just having anxiety. Like, do you know, it's a whole nother level.
Can you just quickly explain, just so the audience understands the difference between anxiety and severe anxiety and depression?
Well, severe anxiety and depression is where it's really hard to maintain work and go about your daily functions. Like you can't do your normal responsibilities. You're often either working part-time or not at all.
Okay.
And so you're not functioning that well. Whereas anxiety and depression kind of moderate or, you know, less. You can work, you can do everything you need to do, but you don't have the energy for anything else and you get really overwhelmed and really down daily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a significant one is you're almost paralyzed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you can't do your day-to-day, your simple tasks. Yeah. And the other ones is you can get on with it. It's just a bit harder than say someone in a healthy state.
Well, I would say, like, it's sad to say, but a lot of people kind of hover in that zone of just, you know, anxiety, low mood, depression, burnout. People tend to hover in that area. Not going down into major depression or anxiety, but not going up to peak performance either. You know, not going up to their peak potential. So it's really on a continuum, right? We can be anywhere on that continuum. We can go through periods of chronic stress and we can kind of move down to more severe anxiety.
Yeah.
Or, you know, when we're rested, taking care of ourselves, recovered and all of that, we can move up to peak performance. We've got like energy on tap. We're you know, seeking out challenges because they're helping us to grow, right? We're really living life to the full.
Yeah. How do we know the difference between just normal fatigue and tired from having a busy week to, hey, I need to actually get some help now?
Yeah. So the fatigue from burnout is the fatigue that's not relieved by a good night's sleep or a good 3 nights sleep or a good week's sleep, right? You're still feeling tired.
Okay.
That's kind of the fatigue. But then you also get the kind of agitated, anxious, irritable, like the kind of mood changes.
Yeah.
And then there's this kind of apathy to your work. So there's loss of passion, loss of motivation. It's just like, whatever.
Okay.
Right. So they're, you know, common symptoms with burnout.
Okay. And from your perspective as a naturopath and I guess working with women, highly successful women as well, because this is also very common among those elite because there's all that other pressure as well, you know, the performance, and then of course you're competing with your peers and all the rest of it. And if you're in a male dominant industry, that's just another layer of stress, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's your kind of protocol without going into too much depth, but like you've ascertained that, this particular individual is going through what looks like to be a burnout. And this is for the women at home that are listening to this and going, hang on a minute, that sounds a bit like me. What's the first thing they should do?
First thing I recommend is go get a checkup. Go get your bloods done. Have a look at, you know, glucose, insulin, cholesterol, thyroid, you know, do a full blood count, like do the full stuff with the blood work and have a look. And if anything, if the doctor says everything's fine, just ask, is there anything down on the lower end of the scale?
Okay, good question. Is anything down on the lower end of the scale?
So some of the markers, you know, if they're up indicates, you know, suboptimal health, but mostly when they're low, and they will be within that range because unfortunately that range is so huge.
Yeah.
And so if they're in the lower end, then there could be further things to investigate there.
Like what do you think? Like say, for example, my iron's always on the low end. I know a lot of women's iron's always on the low end. So we need to supplement with iron or eat more.
It's not just that, looking at gut health as well for iron and nutrient deficiencies for iron. So not just iron, but like B vitamins, vitamin C and things like that. I've heard just the other day from a nurse that there's a resurgence of scurvy.
Scurvy. Oh my God, I
couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Scurvy.
Just all the processed foods.
No way.
Yeah. So the first thing I do is I look at blood work. I look at, you know, the person's, you know, life. Like, you know, I do a full assessment, find out about what's going on kind of in their psychology, what's the stuff that's recurring for them, what's the stuff that's, you know, stressing them out or getting to them. And then look at their schedule. Like for some people, it really takes a lot of discipline to kind of subtract, like to really kind of pull back and go, okay, I can't do everything.
It's hard, especially if you're a multitasker and you wear a few hats.
But for my clients, I try to get them to see that once you're at peak performance, your productivity goes to another level and the quality of your work, rather than burnt out, anxious, tired, trying to get everything out fast and saying yes to everyone. And there just has to be that period for recovery.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just, like, I'll have clients that won't change their schedule. Just tell me what to eat, tell me the supplements, do whatever I need to do, but I can't. And it's like, you kind of like 60% there, but the other 40%, your body needs recovery.
What would you suggest? Like when you say your body needs recovery, like looking at you, for example, like when you recognize I'm going through burnout, like, and you realize, okay, I need to kind of start culling a few things now.
Yeah.
What's recovery? Because we talk about self-care and self-help and having a bath and doing all that stuff. But it sounds like to me recovery is a lot more deeper than, having a bath with a few candles and rose petals.
I don't even find that recovery.
No.
Just get bored in there. But so I get my clients go, okay, what is your priority? And so we look at their priorities and then we create like a not to-do list. So put everything, like pick out the things that are absolutely essential, whether it's to grow your business or there's a deadline to it that needs to be met or someone's going to scream at you for it, right? Put that on the priority list. Everything else is there and that's for later.
Okay.
So get that out of your mind, right? And just work on key things. Creating, spaces in the calendar. Just decompression time during the day. Because once you're stressed and your hormones start to peak, they're not going to come down until you slow down.
Okay.
Right? And so it's that chronic high levels of stress hormone that is really draining and makes us sick, so creates so much inflammation. So if you just don't have everything back to back, if you create pockets of time, 15 minutes, just leave your phone, walk around, like just get some fresh air if you can, but just be away. So it allows the body to decompress and the hormones to come back down.
That's probably the best thing people could do, even if they're not stressed.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll just come back clearer and you'll be able to work faster and more efficiently. The other thing is sleep, like having boundaries with sleep, getting to bed by 10, having 8 hours sleep.
Thank you. Because you know what? My family makes fun of me because I go to bed early. Yeah. I'm in bed, like I was like up at 9:15. I'm like, I'm going to bed. And they're literally making it just like she's going to bed with the chickens. I'm like, yeah, I am going to bed with the chickens, but I am an early riser.
Yeah.
Right. And I find as I'm getting older that I do need that. I do need 8 hours. I was always a 6-hour person.
Yeah.
But as I'm maturing, I'm finding that I need 8 hours. I need a good
to your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some people they have such busy days and they're mums and they run companies and so they come home and they're like, they're tired and they just want the time to themselves, right? So they sit on the couch with a glass of wine, watch a bit of Netflix, that's their time. I'm like, that's numbing you out time, right?
You're right.
That's not checking in with yourself time. No. That's just completely numbing out. And so it's much more it's much better for them to just go to bed. And it's almost like I feel like, and they've told me, I feel like you're my mother telling me to go to bed early.
But it's true.
But it works, right? Because the body, you get extra deep sleep if you go to bed before midnight. You're going to get more recovery time. Recovery time which you just won't get if you're not getting to bed in time, which means the batteries aren't getting refilled. There's all these processes that happen while we're sleeping. If we don't have that window of time, it's not going to happen. Our brain detoxifies, we process our emotions, our body, our immune system's active. Like there's so much happening. If you cut that short by a few hours, it's not going to happen.
What's the optimal sleep time, do you think?
About 8 hours.
About 8 hours.
Yeah. Some people feel good on 7. That's kind of their natural.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But as long as it's, by 10.
Deep sleep. Yeah. And you're right, because I've stayed up watching Netflix and gone to bed really late and then woken up, my usual time and I'm like a zombie. So I cannot function. I used to be able to, but not as I'm getting older. I can't. I actually, and then I'm tired and I'm foggy and it's just not right. As opposed to, going to bed 9:30, I'm lights out. Very rarely, occasionally if I'm stressed about something or for whatever reason, if I've had too much chocolate during the day and I can't get to sleep because I'm a bit hyper. But most of the time, and so that going back to the recovery, sleep is one of the most important things you can do for recovery when you are hitting that burnout stage or even prior to burnout. So start with sleep first. Start with sleep. The small little dietary things that I recommend to reduce stress hormones, because burnout is a result of chronic stress, right? And so you're looking at don't have caffeine on an empty stomach. It's the worst thing you can do. Really? Even in the morning?
Yeah, even in the morning. Worse in the morning.
Really?
Yeah, because your cortisol's highest in the morning.
Coffee in the morning.
Yeah, I always look. So these little shifts, they're so small, but they make such a big difference. No coffee on an empty stomach. Eat breakfast within 20 minutes of waking.
Okay.
Yeah. And add some carbohydrates to your meal. Go to sleep by 10 p.m. Right. So the no caffeine on an empty stomach and the breakfast within 20 minutes and having a good quality breakfast. I recommend my busy people just, I give them a smoothie recipe with protein, fruits, good fats, essential fats, whip it up, have that, keeps you satisfied for hours. But that will prevent too much hormonal, because in the morning, cortisol is at its highest. So if you rushing around, you have a coffee, you have no food, caffeine is going to cause more of a surge in your stress hormones. Then it's going to disrupt your glucose levels, which our brain lives on glucose. That affects anxiety and mood and concentration. And then we'll get cravings at the end of the day. So we'll want more chocolate because the glucose is disrupted. Am I describing you?
Yeah. I'm sitting there going, is that why I feel like chocolate every night?
So if you change the way you start your day,
I'm actually going to do that.
You're going to change the way you end your day naturally because your glucose levels will be more stable and your hormones.
I love a coffee first thing in the morning. And that time I was a runner, still am a runner, but don't run as often as I used to. I'm trying to get back into it. And for me, it was like a short espresso and off I go.
You can get away with it with exercising because your body will use the
caffeine,
the cortisol and the glucose. It will use it while you're running. But most people just get up, drink a coffee, don't eat anything for 2 hours after that.
Yeah.
Go about their day. And then they're just like, oh, they feel okay. And then in the afternoon they eat lunch and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
Right. And then they're looking for something sweet and then they come home and they feel like, they could eat the entire pantry sometimes and not feel satisfied.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of cravings because the glucose level's been really disrupted.
And if you make that tiny tweak. So those people that are doing that whole intermittent fasting, because I know that's a big thing.
I don't recommend that.
Really?
There's a place for that. Absolutely. I do talk about it in my other programs, but you've got to get out of burnout first. Your body needs nutrition to repair because in burnout, chronic stress breaks down key systems. It affects our mitochondria, which is the main it's like little batteries inside of our cells.
Yeah.
So we need to recharge them. We need to repair them. And that takes nutrition. We need nutrition for gut support and for liver detoxification. All of these things that break down with burnout. And if you're not eating enough food and the right food, you simply won't have the calories and the nutrients to repair those.
And that's important. So no intermittent fasting when you're stressed or going through a burnout or think that you might be.
Even if you've got anxiety.
Even if you've got anxiety. Isn't that interesting?
That's
actually a really good tip because there's so many people I know that are so highly strung and highly stressed and then they're going on all these different crazy diets, or I don't want to call them diets or, whatever you want, whatever they are, ways of eating.
Yeah.
And I myself personally think I'm convinced that it can't be good for you. But they seem to think it's okay, and then they might lose or shift a bit of weight or feel a bit better temporarily, but then they're worse off. I've seen it. I've actually seen it a couple of times.
I've seen it. I've had so many women in my community that have eaten barely anything. One woman was like a marathon runner. She's like, I barely ate anything. And I was so stressed all day and snapping at her kids and finding it hard to work.
Because you're hungry.
She's hungry, right? She went to she was working with a functional medicine doctor. This is in Canada. And for a couple of years and wasn't feeling better and was gaining weight, was continuously gaining weight. And she came into the program and she was just like, I've not eaten this much, in years. And she felt, she slept for the first time in like 10 years or something.
Wow.
She lost weight. She was, had a better relationship with the kids and she was happier. She got a promotion. And, I think, weight loss, women focus on weight loss. It seems to be the only marker for health, and it's not a marker.
Just because, you know what, you get the likes of celebrities, you know, telling you, you know, I only have broth for lunch and I have my celery juice.
And I've got an IV of
and
vitamins.
I have an IV. I saw a meme the other day with a celebrity, with one of these freaking Netflix shows, and the hairdresser and the client are sitting there with a drip that they're not eating, and I'm like, this can't be normal. This is not normal. This is not healthy. No way. You need to. They're hangry. Is a thing.
Did you see the one with Gwyneth Paltrow?
Yes.
Yeah, that went viral.
Yes, it's come on, Gwyneth. I mean, you used to cook. You had a cookbook, for crying out loud.
Those days are over.
What happened? Are we eating air and drinking broth? Is that it? I can't. Like I'm really finding, like, look, I'll be honest. I tried the whole intermittent fasting thing, and I didn't work for me. And I read a book, and I read a book about it, and, you know, tried to do it the right way and all the rest of it. But I found with the amount of energy I use on a daily, going without food for 16 hours was way too. I actually felt really crap, and I did put on weight too. I actually put on 5 kilos, and I was eating the least amount of food that I was eating, and I couldn't quite figure it out. Too much
stress for the body. It's
too much stress for the body. Whereas now I eat when I'm hungry. Like, and if today I had a big workout, so I had a shake, and I packed it with heaps of stuff, and I'm fine. I had a good lunch, and I'm fine, and my weight's kind of stabilized. I'm not as obsessed about weight as I used to be years ago. Older, you know, there's been a lot of acceptance. So it's like, hey, I'm all right.
I honestly think once you turn 40, like once you get over 40, you're like, you just think differently.
You just do.
I feel
really
like
do.
in your 30s or in your 20s, it's
crazy. Someone asked me that the other day. Oh, well, you know, I'd love to go back to being 20. I'm like, maybe for the skin.
Yeah.
Maybe for the perkiness of certain areres. But other than that, I like my brain better now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I think, and that's just life. You become wiser. You literally don't sweat the small stuff. My sister bought me that book years ago because I used to sweat the small stuff all the time, and now I don't. I think you try and learn to prioritize what's important, and you listen to your body a little more. You kind of, I feel like as women get older, there's a little bit more in tune. We may not always be in tune because we're obviously doing a million things at the same time sometimes, but we know when things are a bit off, and sometimes we just need a little bit of help figuring it out. And, you know,
I have a lot of women say, like, I know, like, you know, one woman said, you know, her doctor said to her, you just need to be on antidepressants, right? And she's like, but I know me, I'm not depressed. Like, I know. And so women generally know where they're at.
Yeah.
But they're not understood, not heard. It's still the old kind of, you know, mentality of the hysteria of a woman and stuff like that. I mean, it's less today, but you know, the amount of times I've had clients and women in my community go to the doctor and they're like, oh, you don't need those tests. Don't worry about it. You know,
I had that just recently. You know, I was concerned because I was feeling really tired, and I thought, it must be my iron. And I made a point of saying to my doctor, you know, can we just check the iron levels? And I had an infusion, so I knew they weren't bad, but I thought maybe they're dropping. Maybe I need to get on top of it again. And he said, no, you'll be fine. You're fine. You just need to get more rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's like, okay.
It's frustrating.
It is. I mean, and that's just a minor thing, let alone women that are, you know, going through a lot more severe symptoms.
Yeah, like some women really struggle to get through the day and do what they need to do, and, you know, feeling emotionally exhausted. So, you know, I have some really successful women that'll be like, I can't get off the couch, I can't stop crying. I don't know why, you know, right? So, and they've got companies to run, and they just,
Is that a hormone imbalance as well? Like,
well, when you're in chronic stress, the stress hormone cortisol affects every other hormone.
Okay. Explain to us what cortisol is, because I know there's so much about cortisol on the internet and whatnot. Some of it's good and some of it's not so good. So just from a naturopath's perspective, what is cortisol and what is its role in the body?
So cortisol is part of the stress response system, and it activates like the fight or flight response. So it gets us when we're in a life-threatening situation, it primes our body to either fight or flee. So we're either going to, we're going to handle that situation. We're going to run. We're going to, do what we need to do, right? So our stress response is designed to keep us alive. And cortisol is this kind of, so if we've got stress at work, too many emails, too many deadlines, financial pressure at home, then that's like a constant drip of cortisol all day, right? And we were designed to have a stress response for 30 minutes every 2 to 3 days. That's our biological, like that's what we were designed for. We have, I'll ask clients, how often do you feel at peace and content and have a clear mind? They're like, oh, maybe lucky to get an hour a day, right? And so there is constant stress in the system, and we just weren't designed for that. So cortisol is, in the fight or flight response, is a life-saving response, but in today's world, it's causing us more harm than good. Not the response, but because we're constantly activating it.
So rather than having it every second day for half an hour, we're having it, it's dripping along every day.
Like for hours, like 12 hours a day.
And
so it's affecting, our reproductive hormones. It's affecting insulin. So we're getting more weight gain, particularly around the abdomen and around our organs. We're getting metabolic syndrome. So we get fatty liver, we get cardiovascular problems, we get sleep problems, we get, disrupts the chemistry in our brain. We move out of like cortisol, chronic, too much cortisol will make us, it moves us out of our prefrontal cortex. So this is the area where it's like the CEO executive function of our brain. So we can be, make quick decisions, and we can be quite creative and intelligent. When cortisol is released, it's back in the fight or flight response area.
Okay.
So we're just trying to survive. We're not thriving, right?
Okay.
So we kind of, lowers our IQ, and we're not rational. We're not making proper judgments. We're really myopic in our thinking. The view of the world changes for us. Yeah.
So all of a sudden everything becomes a lot more narrow, which is fine if you're being chased by a tiger.
Correct. Which we never are, thank goodness, in most parts of the world.
But not when you're home with the kids and they're showing you what they did at school today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we tend to, and it could be anything. It might not even, for some women it's, something recurring that really bothers them about their life or where they're at or their relationships or whatever it is. And it's, it's constantly on their mind, and they don't realize it. If I ask a woman sometimes, how often do you think about your weight? Oh, a lot. Like someone will say a lot, right?
Right, yeah.
And even that, right?
That's stressful.
Yeah.
That's stressful. If you're thinking about your weight, which means you're thinking about what you're going to eat, which means you're thinking about what's in the fridge, which means you're thinking about what you're going to buy on the way home, how many that's stressful.
It's too.
I'm stressed just thinking about it now, yeah.
And it's just, it's a lot of, I've had clients with all sorts of things, like just this irrational fear that looks very rational. It could happen. Like these things could happen. Like, something could happen to their child. Something could, the business could, lose all their money and they'll have to shut down, right? So, that kind of thinking is really kind of toxic for the brain and the body.
And it's hard to recognize that thinking because it's, you're thinking all the time. And if you're thinking repetitive thoughts all the time, you're just used to thinking those thoughts. So it's really hard to actually change that thought process and go, that's ridiculous. Stop.
Yeah.
Like, that's never going to happen. Or why are you thinking about that right now?
It's like the frog in cold water to hot, right? You just get used to it.
Yeah.
But you just go off your mood. Like your mood will tell you where your thinking's at, right? So if you're very serious and or down or anxious or tense or overwhelmed, then you got a lot of negative thinking going on in there.
And cortisol increases that, doesn't it?
Well, cortisol increases as a response to that.
Okay.
So when you look at stress, so two people can have a different reaction to a situation.
Yeah.
Right? You may find something stressful in your business that I won't.
Okay.
Right? And what's the difference? We may watch the same movie and we have a different reaction. I love it. You hate it.
Yeah.
Where's the experience?
Yeah. Okay. Got you.
In our mind.
Yeah.
And so that's where if you can have a shift around that so we don't dwell on things, we don't catastrophize, there are certain ways of thinking that trip us up Like I remember in my business years ago in the clinic, if there was a quiet week, I'd be like, oh, this is it. This is where it all goes downhill. I'm done, you know? And so that stuff I didn't know, but that used to always stress me out.
Yeah, there
you don't realize it's there.
How do you stop those thoughts though? Like, I mean, we're all guilty. I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it where you can't help it. You've had a quiet week or things don't go as planned or something happens that you weren't anticipating to happen and all of a sudden you think, oh my, exactly that. Is this it? Is this the final straw? Is this how it's going to end?
Yeah. The last chapter.
Is this the last chapter? What's happening?
So for myself and with my clients, so I would be, I try to remind them, like, is that really true? Is this, there's one thing, like if something doesn't go right and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, it doesn't feel good. And that's okay. That's normal. That's a normal response. But, kind of future tripping on stuff that hasn't occurred and worrying about what could happen. Like, one of my clients who runs quite a big company, she was like, we're really struggling this month and I don't know whether I'm going to be able to like pay everyone. Like we can, but, and I was like, have you ever been in this situation before? She's like, yeah, actually I have. I got through that. So you'll get through this, right? So it's always challenging the thinking. Is this really true? Have I been in this position before? Have I got through? Or if not, am I really resourceful? Have I proven to be quite resourceful to be able to deal with whatever comes my way in the moment?
Yeah.
Because that kind of thinking just runs wild.
Yeah.
And we can't resolve problems with more negative thinking.
No, you can't. You sometimes just got to let it go. I find sometimes when I go on that snowball trajectory where it's just like one thought leads to another thought, leads to another thought, and it's before you know it, you're like, oh, I'm going to head into something. Oh, I've just got to smash into the tree now because that's the only thing that's going to stop this, or have a nap. It is hard sometimes to try, and I will sit there and go, oh, change your thoughts. It's actually hard to change your thoughts.
I tell my clients the best you can, just don't go down that rabbit hole.
Because
you know what's down there. You keep following that train. You know that you're going to feel really crap. You're going to feel tired. You're going to feel more stressed and anxious. Whatever. Just there's no point going down there. But sometimes we can't catch ourselves. We're already down, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to feel what you feel when your mind's thinking about all that kind of stuff. You're not going to feel good.
Yeah.
And sometimes breaking routine, like, okay, you feel stressed, things didn't work out. I'm just going to go for a 5-minute walk.
Yeah.
Something to kind of interrupt you, because otherwise if you sit there and stew on it, you've got nowhere else to go but down.
And we love to stew women, don't we? We're good stewers, aren't we?
Yes, I'm sure that was made as a gift somehow, but I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, no, we do. And then we like to add ons. That's why, we're good at that. So decrease your cortisol by getting sleep. Try and catch yourself out.
Yep. Escape the kind of the trap thoughts.
Escape the trap thoughts. Rest and recovery are super, super important.
Yep.
Cut the coffee out on an empty stomach first thing in the morning.
Yep.
Nourish yourself. Don't do any detox diets or anything like that when you're going through a stressful period in your life.
No fasting, no
nothing. It's all about good nutrition. What are some of the foods that women should be eating whilst they're on this kind of recovery journey, or feeling like, okay, you know what, I need to actually support myself right now? What are some of the foods that you would say you must have this in your diet?
So first thing, cooking at home is prevention against burnout.
Okay.
Right. So even if you eat healthy when you're out, you're actually much healthier
when you eat at home.
Yep. Because you can control the ingredients, right? You know what's going in them.
Yeah.
So I always recommend breakfast within 20 minutes of waking. If you're going to have a coffee, you have it afterwards.
Okay.
Right. Then you want to have lunch and dinner, and you want to have 2 snacks.
Okay.
Right. So you're essentially eating more often, and it's all about balancing that kind of glucose and stress response.
Yep.
So you're putting more nutrition in, and you're leveling everything out. So women normally feel in the first week, they're like, oh, I just feel better already, right?
Yeah.
Mentally they feel better. They feel better in themselves. They have more energy and they're sleeping better.
Yeah.
And so I always recommend, combining your proteins, your carbs and your fats.
Okay.
So if you're having lunch, so having some kind of protein, whether it be chicken, meat, fish or lentils, but it's hard to kind of get that protein content. Salads, even, and I also do recommend carbohydrates, really important, because carbohydrates will reduce cortisol in small amounts.
Really?
Because it switches off the stress response.
Does it really?
Which is why we crave sugar when we're stressed.
Get those potato chip skills. Get that pasta out.
But the problem is many years ago.
That makes me really happy.
In our hunter-gatherer days.
That makes me so happy. Yes to carbs.
So in our hunter-gatherer days, we used to, eat berries. That's how we handle. That's what we did for stress. But now, we're bombarded with food and high-dose fructose.
Yeah.
So our food has a lot of sweetener, a lot of natural sweetener, but so much of it. So a piece of fruit has fructose, but in very small amounts compared to processed foods.
Yeah.
So if you're getting ordinary chocolate, it's not even. It's just sugar.
Sugar and fat.
Yeah. So proteins and carbohydrates. So I include carbohydrates with each of their meal.
So like when you say carbohydrates, is that like a potato or a sweet potato?
Sweet potato,
is it rice?
Brown rice, some starchy veg or some chickpeas.
Okay.
Things like that, even some gluten-free bread.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then so breakfast, you've got the carbs in the smoothie, or any kind of carbs you can have, and then lunch and dinner, and then having some snacks during the day, even if you're not hungry. So even if it's something as small as I'll just grab a handful of nuts and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure that you're all kind
steady.
of balanced.
So there's no cortisol surges in response to a drop in glucose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's super important, isn't it?
Mm.
See, I never thought about, and I guess again, it's because, you read about all these different diets in the media that cut carbs and, the carbs are the key to not surging your glucose spikes and all the rest of it. But in actual fact,
and if you're just monitoring glucose, sure, I do that too. We use continuous glucose monitors with my clients and we look at their glucose spikes. But with burnout, you need it to switch off the stress responses. Like I said, people crave it and they end up, because food manufacturers, they know that the high dose fructose hijacks the brain.
Yeah.
So you end up craving more. It doesn't feel satisfying. And so you're a repeat customer, right? But the brain wants the glucose and the sugar to go back into the prefrontal cortex.
Got you.
Get out of the stress response, out of the fight or flight response.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, but small amounts. If you overdo it, then you get the whole glucose surge. So small bit of chocolate, even some dried fruit, but you're better off mixing your carbs with your protein. It keeps it really stable.
So mix the carbs with the protein. So a piece of steak with a bit of rice or a piece of fish with a bit of potato.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's interesting.
And you also have a better night's sleep because your body needs those carbohydrates overnight, because your body does a significant amount of repair work while you're sleeping, and without enough fuel to do that, right, you end up waking up feeling really groggy and tired because it's just used all of your energy overnight that's been in storage in order to do the work that it needs to do.
So a day would look like, if you're a busy woman, you'd have like a smoothie with avocado, a bit of protein.
I put a banana. So you want the high GI, again, is to bring the cortisol down.
I love a banana.
Me too. I love bananas.
I have a banana every day.
Yeah, I love bananas.
Yeah.
They get such a bad rap. I don't know why.
I don't know why either. Like, I actually feel so much better. I feel like I've got energy and more balance once I have and I actually don't crave sugar when I have a banana. Yeah. Especially when I have one in my morning smoothie. I'm a smoothie girl.
Yeah, I love smoothie too.
Yeah, it's just fast.
Yeah.
So my smoothie would be a bit of vegan protein, coconut water, frozen banana, some spirulina, some ABC butter, and some cinnamon. That's kind of my smoothie staple.
Perfect.
Right? So I'd have that for breakfast, and then for lunch, maybe a salad with some chicken or some tuna. Would you have carbs for lunch as well?
Yep.
You would definitely have carbs for lunch.
So even if you put some chickpeas in there, or just a little bit of brown rice, or I don't know, some roasted. Even, sometimes I say to my clients, because they're so busy. Yeah. Just cook extra for dinner, take it for leftovers the next day.
Yeah, okay. That's easy. Yeah.
And then for dinner, the same, meat or fish or chicken with some starchy veg or some rice, and some, green leafy vegetables. salads and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Should we not be eating after a certain time? Because I know that's a bit of a thing as well. I have read studies on people that eat really late. It's not good. It's not good for your digestion. You don't sleep as well. Should we be eating at a certain window, or and then not eating a couple of hours before we hit the sack?
So normally I would say yes to that. You don't eat, like finish your dinner and then don't have anything else.
Yeah.
But for people who can't sleep, I recommend that they have another snack about 30 minutes before bed.
Okay.
Because that will, again, help them to fall asleep, stay asleep. So it's something with carbohydrates. So it's normally like dried fruit and some nuts.
Yeah.
It'll help them to fall asleep and stay asleep. Yeah.
Okay. And it's a much better way of falling asleep than taking, sleeping tablets or
yeah. And you have better sleep. Just more restorative sleep.
Yeah. In terms of supplementation for women that are highly stressed and cortisol's shooting through the roof and they're on this recovery, what are some supplements that would be easy for a woman to go to?
Yeah.
They can listen to this podcast and go, right, I'm getting onto that.
Yeah. So I would definitely recommend magnesium.
Yeah.
Really top one there, because that one helps to reduce elevated cortisol. It helps with the adrenals, which is part of the stress response system. It's good for glucose levels, good for energy production. We burn so much magnesium off every single day.
Do we really?
Yeah.
Really?
Our lifestyles today are different from, 100 years ago. So we actually burn through a lot more minerals because, we just, our brain is so active and our stress response and what we have to deal with every day. It's like our whole environment is a threat response, and so we burn a lot of that off. So definitely magnesium, taken at night or in the morning, doesn't really matter. B vitamins, preferably activated Bs, because a lot of people have the gene mutation. They don't know about it.
Stop for a second now. I've got to ask you this because I've heard this before. What's the difference between a normal B vitamin and an activated B vitamin? Because my naturopath said to me, no, you can't take normal B vitamins. I'm like, why? I was like, no, you have to take the activated.
Because it's already broken down into the form that your body can absorb, whereas with the gene mutation, you can't do that. And so some people can take, folic acid and not be able to absorb it, and so therefore they'll become deficient and it elevates homocysteine levels. So anyway, just creates havoc in the body.
Okay.
And so because not everyone's had their gene test, I just tell everyone just take the activated Bs.
Let's just see. That's a good one for anyone.
For anyone, yeah.
Okay. It just means your body's going to absorb it better.
B vitamins, again, really good for the nervous system, really good for the adrenals. Again, part of the stress response, so giving you energy, helping you to adapt to stress. And then kind of anything on top of that would be, you can add vitamin C, which is really good for, again, the stress response and the immune system and for inflammation.
Okay.
But then, you can go into herbs, and there's so many different ways to kind of lift people up their levels of well-being.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of this peak level, depending on, but those would be the core things.
Those would be the cores. What about probiotics for your gut?
Yep, definitely. So the process I take people through is first reduce the stress hormones, so through diet, routine, schedules, everything. Repair the gut. Yeah. Okay, because stress breaks down the gut, disrupts gut lining, microbiome, and we have 70 to 80% of our immune system around our gut. So when that's activated, right, we get whole body inflammation, including the brain, which is the link with anxiety and depression, so with gut health, right? So it throws off our neurotransmitters. So all this happens. So everything has to be repaired. Okay. Once the gut breaks down, then the liver detox pathways break down, so we start to accumulate more toxicity. So it's a process. It's not, you do it slowly. But probiotics are good. But I always recommend if someone's been stressed for a long time, because stress hormones have a affinity for the gut, until you reduce them, it's really hard to repair the gut. Like I remember on my journey, I did gut repair for 2 years.
No, what, 2 years?
And I was I couldn't eat anything. Everything, I had intolerance to foods. I was always bloated. I remember having this allergy test or intolerance test, whatever, I can't remember what it was called now, it was years ago, and the woman was like, I've never seen anyone with this many food intolerances.
Don't you hate that when they tell you that you're the first? You're the first one. Really?
And I was like, yeah, I know, because my gut is really bad and it's just reacting to everything, but I couldn't repair it because the stress hormones kept just
Spiking.
it's like I always say, it's like having one foot on the brake, one foot on the gas. Like I'm doing all the repair work, but the pedals, my foot's on the gas still.
Yeah. How did you stop stressing? Like what did you, once you realized how bad, because it seems quite severe just talking to you now, like if your gut's so badly inflamed and you can't seem to digest anything, and even other naturopaths and allergists.
So I say to people, you couldn't don't feel embarrassed about telling me stuff, because I was really bad and I did all the right things.
Wow.
And it's just because that cycle of stress, and I guess it was my journey, which I can see why people stay stuck. People come into our community, they're like, this was the only thing that worked.
Yeah.
Right. Because they were so stuck in that stress kind of burnout cycle, and everything they did wouldn't allow the body to heal. So when your fight or flight response, your stress response is activated, it's not looking for you to have babies and produce the right amount of hormones and digest your food.
No.
It's just survival.
It just wants to survive.
Everything else goes by the wayside.
Isn't that interesting?
Even thyroid hormones are hijacked. Like everything's hijacked by the fight or flight response.
Wow. Is that why you developed the burnout program?
Yeah.
Vesna's got an amazing program. I was sticky beaking it yesterday. I'm like, I should do this program. It's 6 weeks course.
Yep.
And it covers every element of burnout.
Yeah.
And obviously you being gone through the experience yourself, you know exactly what to look for and what people need to be able to mitigate not only the physical and emotional symptoms, but also just get their life back on track. I feel like the other part of burnout that's really, really crap is the fact that you feel so out of control of your whole entire self, right? And I think that gets people down as well, is because there's something not right. You can't quite put your finger on it, but you want to get better, but you don't know what to do, and you just keep going through this ongoing cycle, like a cat chasing its tail or a dog chasing its tail.
Yep.
And I feel that's really disempowering. And I think just looking at your course, and for anyone out there that's listening that feels like that maybe sounds like them, I completely encourage you to jump on Vesna's website and have a look at it, because it is a journey. It is, and it's 6 weeks and it's completely doable.
Oh, it's completely doable.
It's so doable. It's so easy. It's not complicated. It's not hard. I am seriously considering doing it just for my own well-being and just to get some balance back into my life. But tell me about the course a little bit more, because I know everyone's going to be interested in that.
So, it's an online program. It's 6 weeks. And so essentially the first 3 weeks is about reducing stress hormones. So we take you through dietary lifestyle changes, and then a lot of kind of mind conversations around mental stress, worry, concern, the stuff that we hang on to, because that's another really key piece to my work. So you asked me a question before, like, how did you deal with the stress? Like, what did you do? So I tried all these different modalities to deal, like meditation and NLP and all that kind of stuff, which is great. It just didn't move the needle for me. And the stuff that I teach in Bye Bye Burnout and all my program is just a shift in understanding of a better way to use our mind. We'd really get stuck in dwelling, in overthinking, in negative thinking. It lowers our mood. When our mood is low, we're really not the best versions of ourselves, right? And that kind of tends to create more negative thinking, and then we spiral. So having these conversations, I found women have, stopped having panic attacks, stopped having anxiety, dealt with past trauma. Like, it just creates a lot more freedom within the mind, which then allows the body to recover.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Then we do gut repair, repair liver detox pathways, and then we look at, well, do you need any supplements? So I leave that right to the end.
Okay.
So thyroid supplements, adrenal, sleep, whatever you need, I discuss it at the end.
That's actually, you flipped it, because usually when you go and see a health specialist of any sort, they will usually go, oh, okay, you know what, you need to take this, or you need to take that. I've got a cupboard full of supplements.
Oh, so do I. Come on. But I flipped it because, when I speak to people, when I do one-on-ones, I will prescribe supplements right away.
Yeah.
But it was the refining of the program. People would come in, do I need this? I don't know and it was just, it's too overwhelming, this and that. And okay, leave the supplements, just do the work. And they got great results. So I was like, okay, well, let's not talk about supplements till the end if you need it.
It's more logical. It actually makes a lot more sense, because you're actually allowing the body by tweaking your nutrition and your diet. Yeah. Tweaking your rest schedule, getting rid of your work commitments or some of it anyway, as you said earlier, just do what's important, leave the rest. Making those tweaks in your lifestyle in general is enough to allow your body to kind of settle back down again, and then probably take that nutrition that it needs from whatever you're eating. So it is more logical. It makes more sense doing it that way.
Yeah. And it's less overwhelming, and it's easier for people, you know, and it just works. So I never changed it around. I never just left it the way that it was, because it just works that way.
Oh, I love it. It's really, really good. I think we've covered a lot today, Vesna.
We have, I think so.
We've covered cortisol, burnout. We've covered everything, but it's been such a great topic to discuss with you. A really trending one, if I can say that. And I think a lot of women and individuals out there will be really, really interested in it. And I think it's something that we do need to take a little bit more seriously and get that balance back in our life. But thank you so much for sharing all that fabulous insight.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's been so wonderful. We're going to have all your details on our website and on our YouTube channel. And I urge you guys to jump on and have a look. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it. It's a wrap. It's a wrap.